Brendan Dassey, trial day 3, transcript page 67, um, gone questioning Sherry Culhane. And what is that opinion? My opinion is that the profiles from the evidence samples are consistent with Teresa Halbach and that she is the source of that DNA. And also, do you have an opinion whether she's the source of the DNA that you found on your swabbing of the wild cherry Pepsi can? Yes, she is. I'm going to put a slide up now, and I'm also going to be asking Mr. Kratz to bring you a photograph for you to identify. And what is the exhibit number on that? 150. 150? And can you describe, what does that photograph show? This is a photograph of a bone fragment with some burned, charred tissue attached to it. Attorney gone. And once again, Your Honor, I had spoken with Mr. Freeman earlier, and we do have this as a piece of charred remains that was found in the burn pit. These charred remains are with the Calumet County Sheriff's Department, and Mr. Freeman stated that we did not have to produce this item here in court today, and that the photograph would be fine for identification. The court. Mr. Freeman, is that correct? Attorney Freeman, that's correct. The court. All right. And again, would you describe what this item, did you receive this item in the crime lab, from the crime lab? Yes, I did. And what was it that you received? Please describe what this is. This is a bone fragment here with a piece of charred tissue attached to it. When I sampled this, I took a portion of the tissue that was appeared to be least burned towards the bone, and that's what I used for my examination. And did you assign a crime lab item designation to this? Yes, I did. And what was that? Item BZ. And did you conduct DNA testing on this tissue portion of this burned bone fragment? Yes, I did. And were you able to develop a DNA profile from this piece of charred remains? Yes, I was. And I'm going to put a slide up and ask you to explain. Firstly, does this accurately display the findings of your DNA testing on these charred remains? Yes, it does. And would you explain to the jury what your findings were for the charred remains? You can see that I tested for each of the 15 markers and that I've been talking about, but I did not get results from all 15. The markers with numbers by them are the ones that I got results for. So there were 7 markers that I actually got a type from. And again, I got a gender marker telling me that it was from a female. And is this what the scientists refer to as a partial profile? Yes. Is it unusual to get a partial profile from a sample such as this? No, it's not. Explain to the jurors why. This sample was obviously been compromised and exposed to heat. There are a lot of things that will work to break down or degrade DNA, and heat is one of them. And basically what it does is just chews up the DNA. So on the markers that have been larger fragments, you're not going to get any results in most cases. These are the D5, D13, D7, D3. Those are all smaller markers, so the fragments are smaller, and so you have a better chance of getting results from those particular markers. Now, the prior charts that we looked at, where you showed the profile of Teresa Halbach and the DNA profiles you developed from the blood in the rear cargo area of the RAV4, those are what you would call complete or full profiles, correct? Yes. And this here is what's called a partial profile? That's correct. Now, for the complete profiles, I asked you a question whether Teresa Halbach was the source of the blood in the rear cargo area of the RAV4, correct? Correct. And you were able to state, yes, Teresa Halbach was the source? Correct. Can you say that Teresa Halbach is the source of this DNA profile that you found? No. Now, you did compare it to Teresa Halbach's pap smear, correct? Yes, I did. And does this show your results? Yes. And again, all of the markers that I did get results for are consistent with the types of Teresa. Now, why can't you state that Teresa is the source of this profile? Anytime we develop a DNA profile, we do a statistic analysis, and the purpose of that is for us to determine how common or how rare the entire profile is in the general population. So we have statistic numbers that reflect how common or how rare each one of these types is. At each one of these markers is within the population. In order to get a composite number that reflects the entire profile, we multiply these numbers together, and that tells us how common or how rare the entire profile is in the population. As a matter of laboratory policy, any profile that is rarer than 3 times the world's population, which would be 6 trillion, We refer to that as a source attribution. So we're able to say any profile that's rarer than that is consistent, and that person is the source of that profile. Now, because this was a partial profile, the numbers are not that high, and that's why I could not attribute it to Teresa. And this is a laboratory policy based upon world population? Correct. Okay, however, were you able to generate a statistic to tell how rare or how common this profile would be in the general population? Yes, I was. And what is that statistic? 1 person in 1 billion in the Caucasian population, 1 person in 2 billion in the African American population, and also in the Southeastern Hispanic population, and 1 person in 3 billion in the Southwestern Hispanic population. And what does that statistic mean? What does this mean? When we calculate these statistics, we use a database of individuals that's maintained by the FBI, and it's the same database that's used in most crime labs throughout the country. And each one of those DNA types is assigned a specific frequency. It tells you how often that occurs in the population. So in the first one, 1 person in 1 billion, I would expect to find that partial profile from the evidence sample. I would expect to find that if 1 time in 1 billion instances in the Caucasian population. So it's a very rare statistic, correct? Correct. And are there more than 1 billion people in the state of Wisconsin? I don't think so. In any event, Teresa, the charred remains that were found in the burn pit, those matched Teresa Halbach at a number of genetic locations. Yes. I believe there were 7 genetic locations, correct. And that was a complete match, correct? Correct. And I'm going to ask you now to look at one more exhibit, 2 more exhibits, and that would be what has previously been marked as Exhibit 113 and described as a bullet fragment that was found in the garage of Stephen Avery. And can you identify that exhibit for us, please? Yes, this is a bullet fragment that I examined. It's my item designation FL. And when you received that bullet fragment, how did you process that? This was a very small bullet fragment. I was interested in trying to determine if I could find any DNA on the bullet fragment. I visually looked at it. There were no visual stains like blood or anything that I could use. So I took the bullet fragment itself, put it into a test tube, and washed the surface of it with the reagents that we use to extract DNA. So basically, I was trying to wash off all the DNA that was actually on the surface of the bullet fragment. And I took that washing, and that's what I did. That's what I processed for DNA. And were you able to develop a DNA profile from that washing? Yes. And does this slide correctly display the DNA profile that you developed from item FL, the bullet which was found in Stephen Avery's garage? Yes, it does. And did you compare that DNA to the profile of Teresa Halbach that you developed from her pap smear? Yes, I did. And does this slide adequately or correctly display your findings? Yes, it does. And do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty whether Teresa Halbach is the source of the DNA that was found on the bullet, item FL? Yes, I do. And what is that opinion? That the profile from the bullet fragment, FL, was consistent with Teresa, and she is the source of the DNA that was recovered from the bullet fragment. Attorney Gahn. At this time, I would like to move into evidence exhibits 141 through 161. Is that correct, I believe? The court, yes. Her CV is in at 164. Attorney Gahn. And exhibit 164, yes. The court, counsel, any objections? Freeman, no. The court, all right, those exhibits are received. I have no further questions. The court, let's take a break. We'll take a 15-minute break at this time, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back in 15 minutes. Recess at 10:33, reconvene at 11:01. Mr. Freeman, cross. Thank you, Judge. Cross-examination by Attorney Freeman. Ms. Culhane, I'm not going to ask you anything about your qualifications. I think they seem to be fine. It seems that you have significant experience in DNA matching as well as developing profiles. Fair to state? Yes. Now, in this case, you also had to prepare a profile of Brendan Dassey's DNA, correct? Correct. And suffice it to say, same procedure you went through with Attorney Gahn and how you developed Stephen Avery's profile as well as, to some extent, Teresa Halbach's profile, the same procedure you followed with Brendan Dassey? Correct. And other members of the family as well, correct? Yes. You had a number of profiles to develop? Yes. When you spoke about matching with potential biological evidence, again, we're talking about sweat, for instance? Yes. Possibly? Correct. Saliva? Yes. Semen? Correct. And obviously blood? Yes. And at times, you mentioned there was no blood, yet able to develop a DNA profile, and that's from some other form of, as you put it, some other form of biological transfer from the person, a cell transfer, I think you referred to it as. Yes, anytime it would have been from some type of nucleated cell that was present on that item of evidence. Now, obviously, the same procedures were used then when you developed a profile on, for instance, a swab that you took from the RAV4 to match with a known person? Correct. Do you recall seeing this item before? Yes, I do. And I believe that would be, was it your designation DD? Yes. And I believe it's the exhibit number is on there, 129. Okay, did you have an opportunity to not just determine whether or not you could obtain a DNA or some sort of profile from some source? You actually swabbed it yourself, the gun? Yes, I did. Did you swab the trigger? Yes, I swabbed the trigger and the trigger guard here, and also the area around the barrel, the end of the barrel. Now, specifically as to the end of the barrel, were you looking also for blood on the end of the barrel? Yes. Did you find any blood on the end of the barrel? No. And you did that from first visually observing the end of the barrel? Yes. And then you do a swab to determine if possibly it would react to something that would be positive for blood? Yes, I did. And that was negative. Negative, yes. But that doesn't end your examination, correct? Correct. You also did a separate swab to determine if possibly there's some other sort of fluid on the end of the barrel that might create a profile, DNA profile? Correct. And so you did the same thing? Yes, I swabbed the barrel area and also the trigger guard. And unable to develop any sort of DNA from that firearm? No, I did not develop a profile. Okay, and specifically, did you provide it any profile that matches Brenda Dassey, correct? Well, I didn't develop a profile at all. At all? Yeah. I'm going to have Attorney Edelstein put up on the screen using an Elmo. It's exhibit number 45. Can you see that from, oh, you have it on that screen too. Okay. So you can see exhibit 45 on the screen? Yes. And again, that appears to be a license plate, correct? Correct. Do you recognize that license plate as something that you looked at the crime lab? Yes. And again, did you attempt to develop some sort of DNA profile from something that might be biological transferred onto this plate? Yes, when I was examining this plate, this is the same license number that I have in my notes. I was primarily looking, there was no visible stains that were consistent with blood or anything like that, so I was primarily looking for DNA that might have been transferred when someone touched it. So for my sample, I swabbed around the the edges of the item and with a cotton swab, and that's what I extracted. And you were unable to develop any profile, correct? Correct. I'm now going to have Attorney Edelstein put on the screen for us Exhibit 107. Attorney Freeman, is there a way to put it in more focus or closer up? Raise the technology limited. There you go. Okay. Do you see do you see the picture obviously on the screen? Yes. In that picture, there's something that says blackjack? Correct. Have you seen that before? Yes. And referred to as a creeper? Yes. Correct? Okay. And you actually had an opportunity to attempt to extract some sort of, again, determine whether there was any biological fluid or something on this creeper that you might be able to develop a DNA profile, correct? In this instance, on this item of evidence, I was simply looking for the presence of blood, apparent blood stains, and I examined it and it was negative. And when you do that, again, you first did a visual examination? Yes. And then after that, since our eyes aren't always perfect, you again took a swab of somewhere on the creeper and used a chemical to determine the existence, if possible, of blood, correct? Yes. Did you swab in just one spot or did you try to? I'll have to look at my notes to see exactly. That's fine. Okay, yes, in my notes there were numerous brownish stains that were on different areas on the creeper, and I checked them all for the presumptive test for blood, and they were all negative. In your notes or in your report, you indicate two identification numbers for the creeper, a GG and GH. Correct. Was it two separate pieces? Yes, it's two different creepers. Two different creepers? Yes. So on both, neither one noted the existence of any blood? Correct. Now I'm going to have Attorney Edelstein place on the Elmo, this is photograph, I believe, it's exhibit number 82, states exhibit 82. Do you recall examining a wooden headboard at the crime lab? Yes. Does it appear to be the wooden headboard on this picture, exhibit number 82? Yes, it does. And it wasn't just the headboard you examined, correct? I examined some swabs were taken by someone else and those were submitted. I examined those, and then I, in addition to that, examined the headboard.